Buster Posey said the Giants were in the memory-making business when he was first introduced as president of baseball operations, and he proved that by signing Justin Verlander. But is Verlander, who's going to be 42, any good still?
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide episodes actually 3 days a week for now, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, been hosting this show since prior to the 2019 season, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there on video if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And coming up on today's show, we are going to break down the Giants signing, reportedly, Justin Verlander to a 1-year, $15 million contract. And right away, the first thing that jumps off the page is that Justin Verlander is a big name, right? He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's one of the best pitchers, in the last several decades. He's just got quite a resume that's going to make him perhaps a unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer. Like, he's on his way to Cooperstown. He is going to be 42 years old in February, right after pitchers and catchers report. Right around then, he's going to turn 42, and this is going to be his 20th season in the major leagues. So there's two things at play here. Number one, you go from Corbin Burns potentially to Justin Verlander, and name recognition wise, Verlander might even be the bigger name. But the issue is that he's not what he once was, or at least we shouldn't reasonably expect him to be what he once was. And he's coming off the first truly rough season of his career, and it was ravaged by injuries as well. So we're going to break down those injuries, break down why the Giants made this move, and is Verlander any good? There's actually some signs that he may still have something in the tank despite a 5.48 ERA in 2024. And so, again, the memory-making business. And Andrew Baggarly wrote a piece, several months after Buster Posey said all that stuff about how the Giants could very well look to go after name brand players who are on the downslope of their careers, in part not just for the name brand recognition, which is something that I don't think they should do at all. Like, if you're just signing a player because it's a name that people recognize, maybe that's good for business in a way, but if it's not helping your team, then I'm not really in favor of it. But they said, Andrew Baggarly re-quoted his Zach Manassian, who's the Giants general manager, after this signing went down in a piece in The Athletic about signing name brand players who might be on the downslope of their careers. Manassian said to Baggarly earlier, in 2024 or late in 2024, it's never going to be something we underestimate. We wouldn't bring someone just for name value. We want to make sure they can perform on the field. But in my experience, I've been fortunate to see players revive their careers when maybe others thought they were done. And so that's a perfect example of what Justin Verlander is right now. Maybe others think that he's done, but there's upside. And in fact, it does make a lot of sense given the names that have come off the board at this point. And just keep in mind, too, that Roki Sasaki another pitcher, is still unsigned, and he's expected to sign after January 15th, but he has no later than, I think, the 24th to pick a team. So that's coming down the line, and the Giants are one of, I think, about 8 teams known to have been granted a meeting with Roki Sasaki. So they're still in play for him. And I don't think that this signing necessarily says anything about them not being in on Roki Sasaki or that they've been told they're out. Maybe it does, but maybe it doesn't. So I don't know. There's so much to potentially say about Verlander. The first relevant question is like, is he any good still? Although I do just want to hammer home the point that Justin Verlander, to the casual Giants fan, is a name you know, right? He's a name almost every baseball fan knows. He's a face almost every baseball fan recognizes. And that means something to a team that has been kind of faceless and nameless, right? The Giants have lacked that star talent. And so Verlander may not actually be that star talent anymore, but he's a face that, like, I think about basketball sometimes because I'm a casual Warriors fan. I'm not afraid to say it. Like, I don't know that much about basketball. I really enjoyed when the Warriors were really good, and I watched a lot of games during that time. But in recent years, I haven't been watching because they haven't been as good. And I don't know. I see players around the NBA, and I'm like, I know that guy. I know that guy. I know that guy. And if that guy comes to the Warriors, I'm intrigued, even if people are like, yeah, well, he's kind of washed. But, like, you know, I'm like, well, I know that guy, so I might watch. I'm interested. And so I think that there's some of that to this. But at the same time, like Manassian said, again, he's the Giants general manager, handpicked by Posey. They're not trying to sign players just for name recognition, face recognition. And transitioning is the fact that there's reason to believe, when I look at the numbers, that Justin Verlander is not as washed as he may appear by his 2024 numbers. And it's worth pointing out, in 2023, he was good, even with diminished kind of peripheral numbers. Like, his strikeout rate has fallen every year since 2019. And even in 2023, when he was good, a 3.22 ERA, his strikeout rate was below Major League average at just 21.5%. The previous year, it was 28%. So he goes from 28 to 21.5. And then last year down to 18.7. And that's way below average. So it's not the same Justin Verlander who was striking out over a third of batters in 2018, 2019, even 2020. He missed all of 2021. I say even 2020. He made one start. And then I think he had Tommy John at that point. But then he came back in 2022 at age, 39, and had a 1.75 ERA and won the Cy Young Award. And so that's not the reasons that I'm citing for why he may not actually be washed. There's actually more to it than that for me, but it is worth pointing out that even when he was good by results in 2023, you're looking at a strikeout rate that was below league average for a guy who at his best was just a dominant strikeout pitcher. So that's worth pointing out. But yeah, in 2024, I think that's where it's worth turning our attention. He pitched 90 and a third innings, made 17 starts, and he was on the injured list at least 2 times. I know he had right shoulder inflammation, and he missed a couple of months with a neck issue. And so injuries are certainly a concern for any pitcher, but especially for a guy who's going to be 42 in February. But, so the injuries explain part of, the fact that he only threw 90 and a third innings, of course, but also the 5.48 ERA, 4.78 fielding independent pitching. Those numbers don't look so pretty. But when we dig a little bit deeper, there is reason to believe that Justin Verlander can still be good, if not really good. So we'll explain why momentarily and before we do. Today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, here we go. We are going to get into what Justin Verlander may bring to the table for the Giants from a on-the-field pitching standpoint. We're also going to get into how it's a move that also has a benefit in terms of mentoring the young players, young pitchers specifically on the Giants, and they have a lot of them, and leadership too, like just kind of what he brings to a clubhouse, accountability for sure, all of that and more coming up now. So thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. We're going to be doing one more episode this week, probably a mailbag. I'm curious what you all are thinking at this point in the offseason with spring training just over a month away. We've got Roki Sasaki. There's a lot of hitters still on the board, and so are the Giants in play for those guys? We'll also explore that later today, where their payroll stands after adding Verlander for $15 million on a one-year deal. So, I'm genuinely not being like a homer at all when I say, okay, I mean, my first thought when they signed Verlander is like, ho-hum, he's going to be 42. He's a great pitcher, but it reminds me of when the Giants signed Randy Johnson back in 2009, was it? But hey, guess what? The next year they won the World Series and it started a 3-5 run. And I'm not saying Randy Johnson did that, but it was entertaining to watch Randy Johnson, but he also ultimately didn't put up very good numbers. And I think the Giants, in order to make the playoffs, are going to need something out of Justin Verlander. And so, I don't know. People are going to want to watch him pitch, though, unless he's just really stinking it up. But anyway, what gives me optimism is looking at the quality of his pitches. So these days, we're able to quantify the quality of individual pitches. And there's this metric, I think it was created by Eno Saris of The Athletic. It's featured on Fangraphs, and it's a metric called Stuff Plus. And Justin Verlander throws 4 pitches: four-seam fastball, curveball, slider, changeup, and all 4 graded as significantly above average in 2024, despite the 5.48 ERA. And his location plus, which is another thing, you got the stuff and you got the location, was also above average, but just a little bit. And so you might look at that and be like, well, how does that make sense given that he got hammered to the tune of a 5.5 ERA and a strikeout rate that was only 18.7%? Well, I do look next here at the expected ERA, which was 3.88. So a 5.48 ERA and a 3.88 expected ERA. And that's based on the quality of contact and your strikeout rate, your walk rate. So to have a 3.88 expected ERA, despite a strikeout rate that was way below major league average, is actually really hard to do and impressive. So it tells me that there was batted ball luck, like legitimate luck, probably a lot of bloop hits, maybe some like cheap homers. He did play for the Astros, where they have that short porch and left. And I was looking on Baseball Savant, which is where StatCast data is featured. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that Justin Verlander allowed 15 homers last year. If he had played all of his games, thrown all of his innings at Oracle, only 10 of those 15 homers would have been homers at Oracle. And if he had played all of his games in Houston, he would have allowed 18 homers. And this accounts for wall heights, distances, and environmental effects. There's like this myth that it's like, what about the wind? Often people say this to me when we're talking about hitters, and I'm like, well, he would have hit this many homers at Oracle if he was, whatever, like if he was on the Giants. And they say, well, what about the wind and the wall and all that? Well, this is accounting for that. You see that before the game, you watch on TV, they're showing all the wind patterns and stuff. They can show you how much it affects a fly ball, how many feet are lost due to that wind. Well, this accounts for that, excuse me. And so anyway, accounting for that's, only 2/3 of the homers he actually allowed would have been homers at Oracle. Of course, he doesn't play all of his games at home, so there's that. But at the same time, that is one thing that jumped off the page. And he's allowed 187 homers in his career. Actually, that's in the StatCast era. His career dates way back prior to the StatCast era. And only 134 would have been homers at Oracle Park. And this is dating back to 2016. So anyway, that's one thing worth noting. It's like, duh, Oracle Park is a pitcher's park. But so the quality of the stuff as measured by Stuff Plus, in addition to the fact that the expected ERA was 3.88 compared to an actual ERA of about 5.5, is what gives me hope that he's not done. Now, do I expect him to have a 1.75 ERA like he did in 2022? Definitely not. Do I expect even a 3.22 ERA like he had in 2023? That would be like a best case scenario. Even that year, his expected ERA was 3.63. So 3.63 expected ERA in 2023, 3.88 expected ERA in 2024. If he could land somewhere in that range between 3.63 and 3.88 in terms of actual ERA and stay healthy enough to give you over 100 innings, 120 plus, then that would just be a big win for the Giants, because you'd be getting solid production, not probably ace level production, but at the same time, I'm not sure. Like it's anyone's guess as to what exactly you're going to get. But then there are those other things like interest. I think people would tune in to watch Justin Verlander. And then the mentoring of young pitchers on the Giants and the accountability and the respect that he commands from young players. Like, this is a team, I don't want to say there's like a leadership void, but there kind of is in a way. Like, who's leading this team? I mean, it's Logan Webb for sure, but they don't have that veteran, like older player who like future Hall of Famer type player at all on this roster. And now they do. By the way, this deal is pending a physical. So before I say now they do, well, they've also got Willy Adames. He's not a future Hall of Famer. And they've also got Matt Chapman. So, and one common thread here is that these were all moves that Buster Posey facilitated. We learned from Andrew Baggerly that Buster Posey facilitated that extension for Matt Chapman. He obviously was behind the signing of Willy Adames. And now his first pitching addition, Posey's, is Justin Verlander. So those are three. There's a theme here in that these are players who command respect around the league and certainly in that clubhouse. And then you add like Logan Webb and Patrick Bailey, and suddenly, like, I think Buster Posey seems to recognize that there was a leadership void. You did have players kind of coming out and speaking out against what was going on under Gabe Kapler at the very end of his tenure here. And I don't know. I agree. Like some of the stuff we heard about what was going on with the playing of that game, I forget what it was called, but Jock Peterson and all that. But I think with Verlander, you're going to kind of get no nonsense. It's not like you're going to get a bad personality or a bad clubhouse presence. That's not what I mean at all. I mean that it's just, you're not going to dilly dally when you got Justin Verlander watching you. Like, he's going to chew you out if you're not taking this job seriously or whatever, And so I think that it's kind of invaluable in a way. And on a 1 year, $15 million deal, I'm not going to say I'm like over the moon excited about what this means for their win-loss record in 2025. But I do think it could go a long way towards helping them both on and off the field. And if things go poorly, I don't know if there's a no trade clause here. The Giants haven't officially announced this deal because, like I said, it's pending a physical. It was first reported by ESPN, by the way. 1 year, $15 million for Verlander to the Giants. We'll get those details as soon as the deal is official, assuming that he does pass the physical. But I forget what I was going to say. Oh, no trade clause. So if he doesn't have a no trade clause, which I would be surprised if he did, then maybe partial. Then if the season's going poorly at the deadline, he is definitely a guy that they could trade. So, assuming they don't have the no trade clause. Anyway, coming up in just a minute, where does this leave their payroll, and what other kind of moves can they make, considering they just added $15 million to the payroll, and our understanding is that they intend to lower payroll from last year to this upcoming year. So we'll get into that in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Game Time. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year. The energy and the excitement were unforgettable. Now, Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff, so you only see incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets, something I've done way too much in the past. Recently, I was looking for tickets for a Giants game on the road, recently meaning late in the season, and using the Game Time app. With Game Time Picks, I found amazing deals and could even see the view from my seat before buying. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices, plus the app's all-in pricing shows you the total cost upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, here we go. We're going to get into how the addition of Justin Verlander on a 1 year, $15 million contract affects the Giants' payroll. Where does it leave them in terms of normal pay? I don't know what we call this non-luxury tax payroll plus luxury tax payroll. Where are they in terms of the luxury tax? And also, what other moves can they make given that financial situation? Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. We're doing three episodes a week until around the time of spring training. So we get this little pause from the daily schedule, and 3 episodes a week for now. Look out on Twitter or X for a mailbag coming up either today or tomorrow. I will post that. Probably tonight. I will post that. So adding Justin Verlander, again, not official yet, on a $15 million deal. It's possible there's deferred money. I doubt it because the Giants have not been doing that like the Dodgers have. But so let's just assume it's a straight up $15 million ad. That would bring, according to Roster Resource, their 2025 payroll to $181 million. Now, they're doing the accounting that they're doing on Willy Adames' deal, I think is not actually accurate based on what I read about Willy Adames' deal. Like, they have Adames making $13 million each of the next 2 years and then $31 million each of the next 5 years after that. But I think it's actually like $20 million each of the next 2 years and then whatever in the next 5. I don't know exactly, but add another $7 million to that perhaps, and you're looking at a 2025 payroll of $188 million, which would be down from their estimated final payroll of $206 million in 2024. But perhaps more importantly is just looking at luxury tax payroll. It's kind of a simpler number because it doesn't care about what, if you spread out payroll in kind of a funky way just to make things different for you year to year. It just cares about the average annual value of a contract, no matter how you spread it out. And so last year, their estimated luxury tax payroll was $252.8 million. And the first luxury tax threshold was $237 million. The second, $257 million. So they were not far from the second luxury tax threshold and pretty far exceeded the first. So they certainly exceeded the first. One thing to keep in mind is that under the collective bargaining agreement, these thresholds go up every year right now. And so the 2025 first threshold is $241 million. And with the addition of Verlander, the Giants are estimated to be at $221.8 million in luxury tax payroll. One thing to keep in mind, why is that number so much higher, 221.8 for the Giants, than whatever I said, 188? It actually is listed as 181 on roster resource for the Giants payroll. It includes things like estimated player benefits to be paid of $17.5 million. Stuff like that gets added in. And so 221.8, and let's compare that again to where they were last year, 252. So they're about 30 million under where they were last year from a luxury tax payroll perspective. And so to me, I see that there's the possibility for more additions. I also see from simply looking at the Giants roster that they pretty clearly need to make more additions. I'm not sure exactly what those additions will be. Someone that I've been thinking about and talking about, at least on Twitter, is trading for Luis Arraez. I like that idea a lot because Giants kind of need, I think, a left-handed bat. If you look at this lineup, it's pretty right-handed when it comes to the impact bats. Willy Adames, Matt Chapman, even Elliot Ramos. And then your left-handed bats are like Jung-Hoo Lee, and we don't know exactly what we're gonna get out of him, but probably not a lot of power. Lamont Wade Jr., who's a platoon bat, and you're not getting big-time production there necessarily. Mike Yastrzemski, and that's kind of it for your lefty bats. And Patrick Bailey, a switch hitter. So Luis Arraez not going to hit for power, but he is. The Padres are said to be looking to slash payroll. There are rumors out there about teams checking in on Arraez, and he's just under team control for one additional season. So he's a guy that makes sense to trade if you're the Padres. I think probably makes more sense than trading Dylan Cease. They could end up trading both, and estimated to make $14.6 million. And it would just kind of complete their lineup in a way, because the Giants need, I think, like a first baseman / DH, or an outfielder. I feel like they could add in numerous ways. I would love to see them add Alex Bregman still. I know he's got the qualifying offer. To me, he might be the only guy worth signing who received and rejected the qualifying offer, meaning the Giants would have to give up 2 additional draft picks to sign him. And they've already given up 2 to sign Willy Adames, and they did this last year. They lost draft picks with Blake Snell and Matt Chapman, and so there would be a ripple effect of all these lost draft picks. So the player has to be worth it. And if you look at all these guys out there, like Anthony Santander rejected the qualifying offer, and there's some other names that aren't coming to mind off the top of my head that are players that fans are interested in, but they rejected the qualifying offer. Pete Alonso, he's the other one, and Nick Pivetta. So those are the only 4 remaining: Bregman, Santander, Alonso, and Pivetta. No chance, I think, at this point do the Giants sign Pivetta, but Alonso, Santander, and Bregman are the 3 bats that are kind of worth looking at. Well, I also like Ha-Sung Kim. He's good friends with Jung-Hoo Lee. Defense is there. The one problem is you already have Tyler Fitzgerald penciled in at second base, but could he be an outfielder down the road, like long term? Could he be a super utility guy just for 1 year and then maybe let him take over an outfield spot once Mike Yastrzemski's arbitration salary and once he reaches free agency after 2024? So there are some good players still out there. The one qualifying offer guy that maybe Anthony Santander, maybe, but Alex Bregman, very good and still out there. And also former teammate for a long time with Justin Verlander. So maybe that has something to do with the Verlander signing. That's kind of my kind of under the radar take, is like, hey, let's get Verlander to help convince Alex Bregman to come here. Although it's just 1 year for Verlander, and Bregman is going to command many years. So maybe that doesn't have anything to do with Bregman's thinking. Maybe the Giants are just out on a player that expensive given where they are financially. I don't know. But I also like Luis Arraez as a trade candidate. And the left-handedness of Arraez, and also just the entertainment value of Arraez, because he's a little bit overrated as an offensive player, given that he's best at just batting average. But at the same time, I think he's almost underrated because people say he's so overrated that they're underrating him. I still think he's a very good player, and it kind of doesn't matter how you do it offensively. He put up 2 straight seasons where he was 30% above average offensively. So, and those are the last 2 years except 2024 when he had a down year. And defensively, he's been miscast as a second baseman. He's really more of a first baseman and maybe even just more of a DH. He's not your typical DH, but again, I don't think it really matters how you get it done. 30% above average offense is 30% above average offense. And in his career, he's been about 20% above average by weighted runs created plus. So that's another name I'm watching. I just do think there still needs to be a move or two on the offensive side, and there are names still out there. And then, of course, on the pitching side, there's Roki Sasaki, and it remains to be seen where he ends up. But with the Giants have a lot of young pitching. Harrison, Birdsong, Roop, Beck, Wisenhunt. I'm probably forgetting someone as well. I think I'm forgetting someone as well when I name those names. Mason Black. And so maybe this does mean they don't see themselves getting Sasaki. Maybe they've been told they're out. Keaton Wynn, another name, because all of a sudden you'd have like a rotation full of veterans Sasaki wouldn't be a veteran, but you wouldn't have room for your young players to play, to pitch. So I don't know. It remains to be seen. We'll find out on Sasaki within a couple of weeks where he decides to sign. And anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen. Today, for your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. Helps me out a ton, so thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again, either on Thursday or Friday. Thanks again for listening. Today, you are now Locked On Giants.